Good morning.
Hello. Hey guys, it's Bassam.
Hi, Bassam.
How's it going?
Good, man. Good to hear your voice again.
Yeah.
Hi, Bassam.
Again. Who do we have on the call?
Not me.
Looks like we have the usual suspects.
Okay. And we did post this on Slack, right? If others wanted to join.
Yes.
You want to ping again on the general channel?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's going to take a few weeks for us to accumulate people.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you want to share the board and take it away?
So, Bassam, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the planning notes or what?
I think we should start with where we are with 0.6. So I can pull up the board.
Okay, that sounds great.
Although I'm not quite sure that the board reflects all the tickets that are in 0.6.
I'm not sure either, but we've been trying to get it to be that way.
Okay. Do you want me to bring it up on Zoom?
I can do it, or you can do it.
I can do it, no problem.
Yeah.
1 second. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Can you guys see it?
That's
Yes.
good.
Very small.
Okay. Very small. Yeah. The 5K monitor. All right.
I'm updating the board right now, by the way. It looked like we just mainly had some closed tickets that are in the 0.6 milestone, but not on the board, so that won't have a huge impact.
Okay. I mean, I want to go back to let's go back to the milestone just for a second. Yeah. And then this is what we had for the roadmap. So the block storage declared beta, Kubernetes 1.8 support, the volume plugin, which includes the agent on client nodes, the upgrade story, local storage, public cloud, and then improved test matrix and the CRDs. Okay.
So last week we talked about not having the local storage as required for 0.6.
We seem to be backing away from that because the local storage solution in Kubernetes seems to be sort of very alpha.
Is it marked as alpha?
Yeah, and it's still supposed to be marked alpha in 0.8 even, or 1.8.
Okay. And do we know what's required to get it to, support Rook scenarios?
As far as us needing changes from them, or just us
Yeah,
trying it
yeah,
out?
like consuming raw devices and that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, it looks like in its current state, it should get us basically where we need to go, but haven't really had time to dig into it to confirm if there's any missing pieces there or what we need to ask
Yeah,
for. That's the
so
thing.
the I think it's worth spending a couple of hours at least understanding what's required so that we can get it into the 1.9 planning, which, it's going to happen really quickly.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to push it out quite
If
a
we
bit.
need changes.
That's right. I suspect we will.
And our interest there is that we want to use local storage to consume raw or other, I guess, EBS volumes and things like that. And we just want to make sure it's a usable facility for us.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the problem is that it's here. Let me just turn off my notifications 1 second. The problem is that we don't differentiate between like currently we just use a local directory and we point the path at it.
That's host path, right?
Mm-hmm.
That host path, right? And the problem with it not being a volume, you can't schedule its deletion. You can't say, okay, look, I'm done with this data. I'm going to go delete the data, right? Mm-hmm. It's not an entity on its own. It's just a path. And so when it becomes an entity like a PVC, then we're able to actually go schedule its deletion, or say we want to zap the cluster, and we can actually go delete all the volume, the actual data backing the cluster. Does that make sense?
Can we have a hook where we catch an event? This is for now, where we catch an event and we delete the data when Rook is being deleted. This is what I'm using right now for the Rook agents. So if the Rook agents are being deleted, it actually deletes the plugin and the Unix socket file. That's something that we can consider for now until the local volume becomes more stable.
It's not about how to delete the local path. It's differentiating when the admin wants to delete versus, failover. There's no entity that says deleting a pod does not imply deleting the data behind it. Mm-hmm. And right now that's the only option. We either leave data behind always, and if somehow it gets restarted on that node, it's in a bad state.
So one question I have is, I haven't looked into this, that what is the challenge on this? Because to me, from what I've seen from the example, I haven't actually looked in detail, is that you create a PVC just like you would create a regular on any other volume, and then you specify like the directory from that host, right? What is the challenge on getting this done for 0.6?
So it's really just a matter of time and going and implementing it. It's not like a 2-hour thing. It's feels like on the order of days. It could blow up to even more than that. Yeah. So I mean, we know it's an issue. As far as priority for 0.6 and blocking 0.6, it wasn't clear why the cleanup scenario was critical for 0.6. I guess.
Yeah, I think what we should prioritize is in the bucket of we need to get changes into 1.9 that we need. I would put that in that bucket. Just spending time understanding what we would need changed, even just to improve the experience, and then making sure that we have tickets open, at a minimum, feature tickets open, or in the Kubernetes repo.
And having an understanding of that before the SIG storage face-to-face up in the Bay Area would be good, because we'll definitely have a nice channel there to be able to talk about those things and make sure our input's heard there.
When is that?
October 10th and 11th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And who's planning to go to that?
I'm going to that.
Okay, great.
And I definitely have some debt in terms of a lot of the big designs like local storage and CSI and stuff that I need to bone up on before heading there. And so if there's any notes or lessons, Travis, that you have from local storage, please do share them with me so that I can give them a voice while I'm there.
I think in terms of local storage, I think what's really needed here is a design
Right.
a design doc, and that'll hopefully flesh out any kind of gaps that need to go into Kubernetes.
And really, so after the file CRD, that's my. Let's see. Do I have one more ticket? Oh, there's. 919 is a related ticket as far as putting, basically using a PVC under the OSDs. So really, after the file CRD, I think it makes sense to spend some time on it.
Okay.
I think time-wise, likely, likely it'll be fine, and it'll be in 0.6. I think there's a question of what's absolutely required.
It could be that the design document is sufficient for 0.6, right?
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if there is some alpha version of this that works, then yeah, let's get into 0.6 if it's very simple. I suspect we're going to find issues that we're going to need fixed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about the agent. Steve, can you give us an update on where you are with that?
Yeah. So last week, Jared, I, and Dan, we decided that we were not going to support the multi-read write. And the reason why we're not supporting it because Kubernetes doesn't have a way for us to present the volume as a raw block device. There's a new feature, I think slated for 1.9, where you can specify the volume type to be raw or with a file system. But that's not there yet. So Kubernetes actually formats the volume and expects the volume to have a file system. So I guess the team we didn't see an advantage of having supporting multi-write at the moment.
Just to make sure I understand that. I thought the formatting and mounting is something that a volume plugin did.
Yes, correct. But
so we have control over that?
Yes, we have to control over that. But Kubernetes, it gives you like a directory saying, hey, I want you to mount this device on the volume ID on this directory. And you're not able to mount it unless you format it with a file system or something.
Understood. The pod sees a file system, not a device.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we decided to do that for 1.9 when we have local raw block a feature when it's released. So that's the full multi-write. Also last week for testing, I found out that for 1.6, there were some challenges. There was some information that were not given to us that we were expecting, like the pod information that we use those pod information for fencing. So me and Jared, we had a big talk on Thursday, I think, and I think we had to reach a conclusion. So I'm implementing that right now, and I'm also testing the multi attachment for read only. So that's great.
Has the design changed?
It changed a little bit. So before, you know how we were storing the pod identity being the namespace and the actual pod ID or the pod name. It turns out that we actually need one more information that we're storing, and we're calling it pod controller, a pod parent. So the reason why we're storing this information is because Kubernetes, when it fails over a pod, it actually deletes and creates a new pod. So the new pod has a new name and a new ID. And this is for pods that are started with a wrapper, like a deployment or a replica set or replication controller. So pods that are started with that, they actually get a new identity when they fail over. So because they get a new identity, the agent or the Rook plugin doesn't know whether this pod is actually a pod that was failed over or a new pod or a different pod that's trying to attach the same volume. So in order to differentiate between that, we added one extra information to the CRD, and that extra information is the it's pretty much like the pod parent. Like, hey, who is your pod? Do you have a pod parent? And so who is it? So we stored that from. Yeah.
Why do we need to disambiguate those two cases?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
I had the same question.
Yeah, the reason why we need to disambiguate with those two cases because we want to one thing is that we want to do fencing. So we want to prevent another pod, like a totally completely different pod, from attaching the same volume, right? So that's one case. The other case is we want to what happens when that node goes down and and Kubernetes scheduler is starting to migrate the pod from the node that went down to a new node that is to another node. When that happens, the pod ID changes. So the name changes, the ID changes, right? And when it comes to attach it, our Rook volume plugin, if we don't handle that case, our Rook volume plugin say, hey, wait a second, you're a different pod, go away. You're not allowed to attach. So the volume will be locked. Nobody will touch it. But
the old pod just has terminated, right?
It has terminated. But when it gets created, it gets created with a new name.
It seems like, Steve, you're trying to give preference to the recreated pod for when a pod is killed or something like that. And I wonder whether that's either necessary or correct.
I need to handle both cases because if I don't handle that second case that I talked about, then if a node goes down and Kubernetes tries to fail over, it will get there. Hey, this volume is already being logged by a different pod or something like that.
Not if we remove the instance when the pod is terminated.
Okay.
So there's two things. There's cleaning up the lock, and there's who should get the next lock.
But even if you clean up,
it feels like who should get the next lock should be
anyone,
right? Why would I want to give anybody preference? And you're concerned about somebody not being able to get the pod because it's locked, and so maybe the thing we should be investing in is how do we clean up the lock, which is why we did this whole agent thing to begin with.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that if we don't handle that second case, we might get into a position where we would have the same volume attached to two different pods. So
not if you no. The issue here is, should the agent understand the notion of a failover, old pod and new pod, or should just blindly understand that if a pod goes away, I remove the attachment, and if a pod is attached, needs a volume, I do the attachment.
Even if that pod it was a different volume? Well, so was a different pod?
Who cares? The only thing you're trying to fence against is multi-attachment.
Okay.
Who cares if it's the same old pod or a completely different pod that wants the volume? That's something much higher level.
It's even so in our conversation last week, what I took away from it was that the by far the most important thing is to prevent from multi-attach and having two consumers or two writers to that volume. That's the last thing we ever want to have happen, because that can cause corruption, right?
Correct.
So in my understanding, it doesn't matter who the old one was, as long as we can be confident that they're gone and they're no longer writing to it. That's the important part to me.
Yeah.
The agent should not know or care about if it's a failover scenario or if it's a completely new attachment or a different attachment. That's logic that's done at a much higher level.
Okay.
Some deployments, or it shouldn't understand it, nor should it be important.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that should be done by that decision should be done by the orchestrator or by the controller or something.
Someone understands why, somebody has a reason why a different pod needs the same volume. That's That's not something you should understand at the agent level.
And whatever that reason is, we can go ahead and attach as long as we can conclusively make the decision that the old consumer of the volume is really gone and no longer using it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you need, so as long as you can quickly delete the attachment when the pod goes away, then it should be free for whoever wants to attach it next.
Yeah.
Including failover.
I see. Okay. So Jerry, I had your case handle. So right now, if a pod wants to attach the volume and it finds that it's already been attached, it just makes sure that the old pod has been removed. If it has been terminated, then it will know, oh yeah, this is an orphan volume, so I'm gonna proceed attachment. But I was also handle the case that checking, hey, who's your pod parents? So
I still don't see why the parent matters though, because you just have to know is someone using it. I don't care if we belong to the same replication controller, just someone using it or someone not using it.
Yeah, that's what Bassam is saying.
Right.
Okay,
right.
yeah, that's a good point then. I won't care whether it's a failover or a new pod. And
yeah, I don't think we need that field on the CRD.
Okay, so I'll keep it the same.
Cool.
So that's it. Just I want to make sure I understand it because we spent quite a bit of time on the design of this. Did the CRD structures change since I last looked at them?
It just the only change was adding that extra parameter where it tells you who the pod pairing is, and that was added to determine whether the pod was being fell over or a different new pod. But based on this conversation, I'm gonna be removing that and going back to the I guess the original CRD spec without that extra parameter.
Okay, and the CRD is still a slice of attachments.
It's still a slice of the attachment. What do you mean by that?
It's still an array of all the attachments for a given volume.
Correct. Even though we're not supporting multiple write and read, but it's useful for multiple read option. Read only option. Yeah.
Okay, so the reason we're not supporting read write many is just because we don't think it's applicable right now in testing.
We don't think it's applicable because Kubernetes doesn't present that volume as a raw block.
Kubernetes only supports read write many for shared file system volumes like XFS and such. And so it doesn't make sense we felt it didn't make sense for us to support read write many for raw block devices.
Okay. And I mean, you could technically still have.
You could technically still do it, but there's a bunch of work going through on the Kubernetes side. There's a bunch of work to support read write many on raw block devices that's coming down the pike, and that's the right time to bring that feature online.
Okay, but the thing I'm sensitive to is that we don't go redesign the agent when we need to do that.
Yeah, I'm keeping in mind when I'm writing, developing this, that in the future we are going to support multiple read and write. So the spec is gonna be the same. So we're still gonna have a CRD. We'll still have a list of attachment, and the implementation is still gonna be the same. So just to be, let me just test that for a second. So right now we're going to artificially put some logic that says if read write many, then fail with an error. Yes.
And if you remove that, we're saying that read write many should work.
Correct. Because I'm actually doing read write multiple attachment right now for read only.
So my question is then why are we artificially preventing read write many?
Because Kubernetes doesn't have a way to present that volume to the user.
I know, but why? So we could, I mean, why would we put that logic in the agent right now? It has no, like, I don't understand why we would fail. Somebody could decide not to use it, or it doesn't have a lot of applicability, or it's not useful. Why would we artificially fail at the lower layer because of,
one reason I could potentially think of, Bassam, is that because we can't test it, because Kubernetes doesn't have the facility to hand off a raw device that we've provisioned to a pod, so we won't actually even know if it works.
Okay.
And
That would be my reason.
The user controls that. So the user can specify PVC with read-write many, right? But it's up to the volume plugin to interpret that what that means. So if Kubernetes doesn't have a way to present that volume as a block device, and I'm not sure how user can consume it.
I understand the point about devices not being presented to the pod, but that's a problem with Kubernetes, not a problem with our agent. So I guess I understand the testing and test matrix scenarios. That makes sense to me. And we can re-enable it in the future when we can test it. What about CephFS?
That's gonna be after this plugin, this PR gets merged. I've been focused mostly on block, and the reason is because I just want to focus on the whole plugin and framework and make everything work, the fencing. And once I get that solid, that can merge, then adding this support for CephFS, will be some, will be a better suited for a separate PR.
Okay, and when we do CephFS, we will allow multi-attachment.
Correct. Yes.
So the logic that we're preventing is only when we're doing RBD or block device.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So at what point is I tried to review the pull request a couple of weeks ago, and then we went into a redesign of the CRD.
Yeah.
At what point is it reviewable again?
So I'm testing right now the multiple attach for read only. So I'll post a PR tomorrow by the latest. I already have all the unit tests done, and integration tests. I have one done too as well. So
okay, and so
what you have tomorrow? Yeah.
What you have in this pull request is essentially the agent. Most of what's in the design doc minus CephFS.
In the current pull request or the new one? Yes, I will have everything: agent, the fencing, the multiple read-only attachment, no CephFS, no multiple read-write many attachment.
And this is 882, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a different pull request, or is this still the right one?
That's the right one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I assume that the pod owner, parent, pod parent, whatever, that field will be removed from the CRD as well.
Yeah. So the CRD spec is going to be the same as it was. How me, Bassam, and you spoke or designed it originally.
Okay. And so what's in this branch or in this fork? We believe is mergeable to master.
What is in this branch right now? It doesn't have any fencing.
So it's not mergeable to master.
It's not. I'm doing that testing work right now, and I'll hopefully today, but by the latest tomorrow, I'll submit an NPR with all the changes.
Okay. Let me see if I ask this again. Tomorrow, when you're done with this, is it mergeable to master or?
Yes. Mergeable to master. Yeah.
So we don't believe it breaks master.
No, I updated also the unit test, and the docs as well. So it should have everything there.
And so when it goes into master, the only change we would have to communicate is that people have to restart the kubelet prior to 1.8.
Correct.
That's the only change in experience?
That's the only change in experience. And
Jerry, that's your understanding too?
Yes, that's my understanding of where we've landed on it now. And then also the positive changes of you don't have to make sure that Ceph tools are installed and all that stuff, obviously.
Tons of positive.
But the negative change, is that's the only one I'm aware of restarting the kubelet.
And how much test coverage do we have as far as other people? I know Jared, you've looked at it, and Devesh, I think, has, and just wondering if we can get independent testing before it actually does merge to master.
Jared took it for a spin just before, but that was without fencing.
Yeah, I will personally definitely do another pass on it with some of the fencing scenarios and stuff on the final PR.
Okay, and did we add new testing, unit testing, and integration testing for this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the plan then for that one is to try to get it to master, say, this week.
Yes, I definitely don't want to drag it any more longer. Correct.
And then the next step would be to add CephFS.
Correct.
And then we're done with the agent for 0.6.
And yes, I think Jerry has a bug where you need to rely on the agent to clean up.
Yeah, cluster cleanup and like preventing zombie RBD devices and stuff. That's going to slip right on into the agent as well.
Great. Okay, so that would be a follow-on. But get the agent into master, and then there are two follow-ons on the agent. One to clean up, and the other to CephFS.
Yes.
Well, are we planning CephFS for 0.6? I don't see a ticket for that.
It's just part of the volume plugin feature, right?
Yeah.
What people would expect.
If you want, I can add it there. But it's actually good timing because you're working on the CRD for creating the deploying the MDS.
Yeah, it's definitely dependent on my work there. Just seems like
why is it
good.
Why is it dependent?
Well, to create.
Well,
I guess they are independent actions. That's true.
Yeah. I don't think we're independent, but I'm just saying that the timing as well because we are changing the way we deploy the MDSs, and we're also changing the way we consume the MDSs. So that's from.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Travis that we should have a ticket on because you're going to close.
Yeah.
432 and 759 when you go to master.
Yes.
We should have a separate ticket on CephFS support for the agent.
I'm also going to be closing 977 as well with that ticket. With that PR.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So you close these three when you're hopefully this week, and then we should have a CephFS issue on. On the board.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then 726. Jared, that's the one you're looking at for MakeFS for Blue Store?
Yes, sir. That is correct. And I've so since Friday night, I hadn't touched it yet. But we are, just to give everyone a quick summary of where we are with that we're to the point where we can revive an OSD to have it back up and in the cluster. But we do experience the loss of its previous placement groups. So because Ceph will wipe them out again when we start up the OSD again and try to recreate its file system. Luckily, everything that it creates is very, very static. So there's not really any dynamic snapshotting or keeping up to date with the file system that we have to do over time. It's all very static set of known files. So I'm hoping that if we can restore those and not do a whole MakeFS operation that wipes out all of its data, that the OSD, since we know it can be get back to up and in, and if it still has all of its previous placement groups, that it will be functional and ready to go again. So I do have some confidence there.
Let me make sure I understand the feature here.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to use local volumes, just imagine for a second that all persistent state that we have in the cluster lives in local volumes. Volumes. We should be able to kill all the pods and restart them, and as long as we have the etcd state that through the Kubernetes API and local volumes, the cluster should come back up.
So I think the scenario that's being focused on now is preventing data loss. So if we have the OSD data devices still around, but we've lost their metadata, what do we do to get an OSD back up and running again? So that has been the focus so far. If you lose every single thing in the cluster, like every single data host path or every single local storage or whatever it may be, that is not a scenario I am tackling right now. If we lose all of our monitors and all that, I'm not tackling that right now.
But some were you just asking about losing the pods, but not the data underneath?
Let me see if I can ask it again. I'm trying to figure out where we have cluster state stored. Right now, we have cluster state. So underneath OSDs, underneath storage nodes, we have either devices or directories, and hopefully they all go into volumes at some point, right? And then there is config states and config files and magic files and all this other stuff that gets generated, right? But because it's generated, we're saying it doesn't need to be persistent. It's not durable.
Right.
So we're trying to arrive at that state. We're trying to arrive to the point where all config, everything outside of the devices is generatable from CRDs and state in the operator. And then any durable long-term persistent state lives on volumes.
Correct. Yes. With a focus right now has exclusively been on OSDs, how they handle that. Monitors, I have not thought about that of what needs to be regenerated to get them alive or not.
Okay. This ticket is only for storage nodes.
Right now, yes. That's what I've scoped it to get something started at least, and get something I think that's probably the most important for not losing data.
Okay.
Because the monitors are. Go ahead.
The way it's written says all config data.
Right.
Recoverable from config stored in etcd.
Yes, and I can't speak 100% to whether or not that's going to be fully achievable in a quick time frame because I have not thought much about monitors. But what the durability of monitors has been somewhat less important for me so far, at least because you can fail over monitors and bring up a new one to replace an old one, but you cannot do that for OSDs. That's why my priority has been on the OSDs specifically so far. And I realized that the title, as it was written probably 6 months ago, is a bit misleading for what's being focused on right this second.
Well, I think starting the OSDs makes sense. You should probably keep an eye on, or at least understand what's needed to get the rest. I suspect that it's the same for all roles. We just have to make sure that var lib ceph something has data that is either generatable or is already backed by a volume.
Well, if we're saying it's backed by a volume, I think that's outside the scope of what Jared is looking at right now.
It is. Right now, yes. But I'm saying it that way because that's the direction we're heading. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, we should once we get the volume stuff supported, once OSDs and mons consume volumes, what local volume or not, then you can say that the cluster runs completely on volumes and with operator state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very clean place to be.
Yeah, okay. I think I see the distinction that's being made there.
Yeah.
And I do have a note too before calling this specific ticket done to understand what the other roles in the cluster need to be able to get to there as well. I think
mons and OSDs are the only ones that stateful, but they need volumes. MDS is stateless, and RGW is stateless.
What about Ceph managers?
Managers are stateless.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Python packages and stuff, but that's part of the image, not.
Okay.
So it's really mon and OSD that need to consume volumes.
Mm-hmm.
Do they consume host path now? Does that look like a volume, or it's literally just a binded mount?
Well, it's a simple mount. Yeah, pretty much. You define the volume as a host path.
Is there a host volume? Is there a host volume?
I don't think so. Well, maybe clarify exactly what you mean by that, because the backing source is just going to be a directory on the host files operating system. root file
Yeah,
system.
but if you look at the pod spec, there's no PVC for that.
Correct. Right.
I guess I'm asking, is that just, I guess that's just local volume, right?
Right. The local volume would do that.
Okay.
So question about kind of what we're trying to accomplish here. So if the goal really is to get to volumes, and we're saying we depend on the volumes being safe and not going away, do we need to spend time right now trying to recover basically a lost metadata volume?
Let me see if I can describe this. Imagine if we ran this in Amazon. We ran a Ceph cluster in Amazon, right? And we actually used EBS underneath all MONs and all OSDs. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to kill all the pods, terminate all of them completely. And then, but not kill the PVCs, not kill the volumes underneath them, but terminate all the pods and then restart the cluster with new pods, and it should come back as if it was the old cluster. That's the behavior we're trying to achieve. If we're able to achieve that, that means that all state that made the cluster what it is durable, either in operator, Kubernetes API, and or volumes underneath MONs and OSDs. If we lost anything, then we've not done a good job of keeping all the state.
So if we just put the metadata on EBS as well,
you could do that.
Then we would survive it.
You could do that. The worst thing to do is not account for any metadata, for data or metadata. So some of it gets lost.
Right.
And that's the part that that was the spirit of this ticket.
Yeah, we have already had a few instances for our users that have lost their metadata directory, or lost the config file or whatever it may be for OSDs, and then the data that was on the OSDs is just gone at that point. So
that's right.
This is at least a useful scenario, Travis, for people that have already been bitten by it. This first step or this first phase, because that being able to keep the entire cluster of all state, everything, be able to terminate all pods and come back okay is a bit more of a chunk to bite off than this first step of useful scenario for some people that have already been hit by it.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially we want to account for all durable states underneath the cluster. Because the next step after this is being able to say, I can back up the cluster.
Right.
Or snapshot the entire cluster, or whatever.
Hey, Jerry, you have a list of all the pods or process that we need that needs to save state?
From this conversation, it's just monitors and OSDs that are the only stateful ones.
Yeah, and in a Kubernetes speak, MONs and OSDs should consume other volumes underneath them because they themselves have state. I know that's not the case right now, but hopefully we can get there very, very quickly.
So we can passing a PVC through the operator to be used by the OSD and monitor? Or
the kind of PVC to use. Use local volume or use EBS or use whatever. And then the operator can create them. And this is what I was saying about zapping the cluster earlier, because I could delete the entire pods that are running the cluster, all the OSD pods and all the MONs and everything else, but the data is all still there. To delete the data, I actually have to go delete all the volumes that are backing it. And that's a separate operation. Zapping, wiping the cluster becomes separate. Make sense?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay. What else on the board?
Pavel isn't on the call, is he? Just to ask about
He's not.
the blog. Yeah.
Hopefully.
How's that going?
You know, honestly, he was sick all last week essentially, and I don't think it moved forward. He said that it's ready for final review. Bassam, have you looked at it in the last week?
The last I looked at it was that he had some really positive performance data, but it was a little suspect.
I know that he revisited that.
Okay. Yeah, I've not seen it since. Travis, have you looked at the performance data?
I read through it, and it I gave some feedback on it over a week ago. I think his revisions make a lot more sense now.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll
Is the state it's in medium, the current state now?
yeah,
As far as I know, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll take a look then.
Yeah.
Okay. What's happening on integration testing and all that? Devesh, are you on the call?
Yeah. We're making good progress. I have the pipelines for release integration and load long haul testing almost ready. I just have 2 more smaller PRs to go in before that, so it'll be all kosher. But my goal after that was to help improve coverage. But I might take a look at that CodeWorks project and see how Rook does against it.
Okay.
They did a lot of boilerplate work to do that sort of testing, so let's just reuse that. So that would be my next goal once I'm done with my current tickets.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm making good progress. It's looking good. Should be ready this week.
Okay.
I think there's one more question to bring up, kind of a minor issue, but maybe an important versioning question. We talked about last week the CRDs, so 2-word CRDs, volume attach and object store and file system. To support both TPRs and CRDs, they have to basically start with an uppercase letter and then the rest lowercase. So the second word is lowercase, and it's kind of awkward casing. Right. So if it feels like the right solution long term is that we need to name it like a CRD should be named with 2 words, Pascal case, both words uppercase. But doing that feels like I think we would have to drop support for TPR or pre 1.7 basically.
Okay. Is that the issue on the board with Pavel on it?
No, that's migrating existing TPRs to CRDs. What Travis is talking about is in the TPR spec, they have some tokens that are essentially reverse camel cased. So they start with a capital letter and then have all lowercase letters. And it would be more work to convert those to the proper casing for CRDs. And so that's what's under discussion.
Okay, so why? Just for my own understanding, I thought we decided against migrating TPRs to CRDs at all completely.
I don't recall that. Did we just?
Okay.
I think we talked about migrating it. Yeah, in all the conversations.
So this is this is the case where somebody installed Rook in 1.6 and we're upgrading them.
And they upgrade Kubernetes. Yeah.
Versus, yeah, I remember we discussed this and said that we didn't want to support it while Rook is in alpha. But we can.
Yeah, I think for the last time I heard is that we were gonna provide. Hello. Okay, we were gonna provide a way to a document. It's not gonna be the outcome for this task. That task is to for a documentation page that illustrate how if the user were migrating, upgrading Kubernetes from 1.6 to 1.7, how would they migrate the TPR and the cluster TPR, the pool TPR, and all that stuff. That was the outcome of this this ticket.
That sounds kind of consistent with what I remember. And does this help if we were to say document how people can do that, which I expect that very few people right now. But if we were to document that, does that help the Pascal casing naming issue?
Well, I think with the naming issue right now, it's about do we care about supporting like 1.6 right now for these new TPRs or CRDs we're adding? And if we're assuming everybody's already on 1.7 for what we're doing in 0.6, then I think we just shouldn't worry about this plugin. We should just name the CRDs how we want to name them.
Yeah. I mean, is this the naming issue? Is this one of those cases where we say if you're running in 1.6, then use one naming, and if you're running 1.7, use a different naming?
I'd be happy with that result.
What's that?
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that kind of result. What's the reality, Travis?
Okay.
It takes a different implementation too for the naming and types that are deserializing and things. So it's kind of complicated to support.
So one thing is that I'm still arguing like why is this a big concern? Because user can use kubectl and then can use any casing to get a list of their objects. This is just visible when the user when the user outputs the YAML file for that TPR or CRD, and it says kind, and then you see the reverse camel case. But for when you come to listing it using kubectl and all that stuff, it's no problem.
So users never write these CRDs? They do, don't they?
The YAML files, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're case sensitive?
It is case sensitive for TPR.
But it's not case sensitive for CRD?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's basically a bug in TPRs. But to support
what have others done with this? How are other people? And this must have come up in Kubernetes, some issue somewhere.
Well, most of the example that we've seen with TPR and CRD that I've seen is only one word.
Exactly.
Operator, cluster, pool. So
this is only an issue for volume attachment?
And file system and object store. Mm-hmm.
Can we just call it attachment? It's in the Rook namespace.
And file and object. We could do that too.
Well, file is weird.
That's true. It's a common type.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it attachment because that CRD has a list of attachments. So it's already, the attachment word is already used for that CRD.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still see there's no. I don't see concern on the casing. From my perspective,
I would optimize for 1.7 and 1.8.
Yeah.
And just document one. If there's something special to do in 1.6.
Well, it's not about documentation. It's about implementation. We will have to have two passes pretty much on our code. We have to say, if you're 1.6, this is the structure, how it's going to look like. The struct, the CRD registration, the TPR registration, the way you're marshalling. So we're gonna have two passes. So we're gonna have if this is 1.6, do this. If else, do something else. So that's the messy thing around it.
And there's no way to pick a name that works for both.
There is. And that's what we're discussing, right? The name right now is that you have to capitalize the first letter, and the rest has to be lowercase, and then it works for both.
How about if we just come up with a single word name that works for both?
Yeah, I mean that's fine with me. Just that my English is my second language. So if you have a suggestion or body
so basically we have the issue is that we have to call it capital V volume and lowercase a attachment.
Yes,
that's correct.
And if you were looking only at CRDs, that's an eyesore. That's the issue.
Right.
Okay.
And keep in mind, this does not affect kubesctl gating and listing and all that. That is handled.
Well, given that TPR is going to become legacy, I mean, I see the point. And coding-wise, is this something that could be factored in the code in a way that you don't have to repeat it? Like get the name, have a function that gets the name based on 1.6 and 1.7. And have the rest be boilerplate?
Yes, you can do that. We'll have to maybe work something out on the kit package, but it just extra work.
If we can define two constants, one for the TPR name and one for the CRD name, make sure we're just using the constant as opposed to the actual strings. That would be.
Yeah, I actually ran into it with the object store. And it was, it just extended into the deserialization types and, yeah.
I mean, if it's not messy, I'd say just make it a conditional with a bunch of constants.
So it's not just a name. It's not just a naming. We have to define two different struct. One struct has to be with a capital V and lowercase a. And the other struct with the same argument is going to have is going to name capital V and capital A. So,
I don't think that's the end of the world, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think at some point the TPR thing goes away. So.
Right, then we'll delete that code. So, yeah I think if we're going to support 1.6, we need to implement it separately so we can get the right name for CRD. I agree.
I just isolate it though, because you're going to cut it off at some point.
It's not beautiful, but it's not a lot of code either, right?
No, doesn't seem like it.
Shouldn't be.
And so having the support then for both TPRs and CRDs across the different versions of Kubernetes and making them pleasing to the eye as well. Is that what 8.19 is going to be tracking, or are we still trying to do an automated in-place live migration of TPRs to CRDs when somebody has upgraded their Kubernetes cluster?
I don't think we should do 8.19. Has anybody asked for it? Has it come up anywhere?
No.
I'd say right now, because we don't support upgrades, and the only version we are going to be upgrading is 0.6 to 0.7. This seems like it falls out to me.
Well, and if we're not going to do anything for that, I think it leads to the question of should we even worry about supporting 1.6 right now, because that's that's TPRs, and we're not going to going forward.
We've hit this before, right? We've said, is Rook deployable on an OpenShift cluster? That's 1.6, and I think the answer should be yes.
OpenShift just moved to 1.6, so I even wonder if 1.5 is necessary.
Right, and last time we revisited versioning, we said we're going to support whatever the client Go library supports. And right now they do support 1.5 and 1.6.
Okay. And if you put
but that doesn't mean upgrade. That doesn't mean upgrade. It just means if I deployed it on 1.6, then I get TPRs, and if I upgrade Kubernetes, then Rook's broken, and I have to go follow some document that tells me how to migrate.
And we do want to provide that documentation. I guess that's what 819 is about now, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Last time I talked to Pablo, that was the outcome of this task. It was that documentation telling the user how to migrate their TPR to CRD during after a Kubernetes upgrade.
Yep.
And then will Pablo also do this whole, two structs to get the right casing and stuff? Is that part of his work too?
No, that was not
That's
part
a
of
separate
it.
issue.
That was
Okay,
yeah.
let's get a ticket on the struct issue. That does seem separate. So this 819 becomes documents how to migrate TPRs to CRDs.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll open an issue for renaming object store CRD to be the proper case and handle 1.6.
So, this brings up the whole CRD issue that I want to talk about as well. So 0.6 is going to be a beta, and I think what that means, to me at least, is that some of the CRDs change from alpha to beta. The namespace changes from alpha to beta.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's cluster pool, and that's it.
Yep.
So
yeah, object and file and volume attacher and use. Those would be
I think it's just cluster and pool. So we would want to make sure that these things are, when they go to beta, that means we're going to migrate them and upgrade them and move them forward. I'm assuming, so it's well worth, and naming changes become more complex later. So I think we want to look at those and feel comfortable that what's in them can be taken to beta.
And can we label the flex volume to be V1?
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, so every flex volume, you can version it. So you put a version. That's part of the identity.
Why would we label it the same version as Rook?
Like beta?
Or
no.
0.6.
Why would we just use exactly the same version number? I mean, it's going to be tagged. The build system is going to tag it with a version.
I don't know. The way I see it is that I think Rook cluster, Rook pool. I mean, Rook cluster, Rook CFFS, flex volume, different type of component. So I was thinking perhaps we can label them differently.
We have two versioning stories. We version our APIs and our CRDs using alpha, beta, stable versioning, because and then we have our binaries, and the binaries are labeled with a uniform version, 0. whatever, a semantic version. Those are the two versioning dimensions that we have right now. Rook volume seems more on the binary versioning.
It's just part of the Rook build, right? So why would it be? How could it even be different?
I mean, we want to patch version it too, right? If there was a bug in it, we'll do patch releases on it. It's not
okay.
Yeah. So what I was trying to get to is the way we are going to support different CRDs are going to have different statuses around alpha, beta, and I think when we say in 0.6 the block store is going to become beta, I think that means that cluster and pool becomes beta, and that they're expected to work and upgrade and do everything related to the cluster and the pool is in beta quality.
Yeah. So we really need to do a thorough design review of where they are, and
and in 0.7, if you want to change erasure coding profiles or pool or whatever, we're signing up to migrate them.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this. But it is the thing I like the CRD becomes the how we interact with the user in terms of both in terms of how they manage the system, but also how we define the level of maturity of each of the CRDs.
Yeah.
So it's actually Kubernetes got this right. I mean, if people are using stateful sets, they know that they are in beta or they were in beta. That whole feature, controllers, whatever is required to make that work, is labeled as beta. And for us, it's a similar concept now. Pool and cluster will be beta.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
Any comments from the meetup on Thursday night that we all had a hard time getting to?
It was very, very boring meetup.
That explains the calf meetups in the world.
The guy from Portworx didn't show up. He sent some solution architect in his place, and the guy basically just read the slides but didn't understand them. It was horrible. It was like a sales pitch for both talks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, a related question. This San Francisco meetup, who actually owns this Kubernetes meetup in San Francisco and schedules it and that sort of stuff?
It's been the SIG storage folks. So, and they're those guys like Saad and Michelle. Then they are Google employees, and it's going to be held at one of the Google campuses. So it seems like it's a Google ownership of it.
No, I didn't mean the SIG storage thing. I meant the meetup.
Oh, sorry.
The one that I thought we quote unquote took over.
JJ.
Okay.
Yeah, he owns the actual meetup on meetup.com.
Perfect. Yeah, because we should, obviously take some opportunities to talk more about Rook when it's the right time there.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Hey, thanks, everybody. I think this was a really successful first meeting.
Hopefully we can get some more external folks later. Well, wait, no, I'm external now. So that counts.
more external folks. I took some notes, and I'm going to share those on the Rook.io Slack channel, and hopefully that'll seed a little bit more discussion, and we can sort of get the snowball rolling downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you guys.
Thanks,
and we are recording this. I see that we're. And so are we going to be posting these somewhere? Or what's the plan for that?
We have a YouTube channel, right? Will we post it there?
We are recording it. I don't know that we've agreed on what the plan is to do with the recording.
Okay.
What do you think? I mean, should we create a Rook YouTube channel if we don't have one?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, if these are open meetings, then they should have minutes, and they should have. If we're recording, then we should make the recordings available.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.